Hey guys, it is John again, and in the previous video where I showed the this new updated version, or just a different version, I had a Mr. Vincent D ask in the comments if he could have a tutorial, so I figured I would go ahead and make one out and show you how this is generally made. So this is going to be the more advanced one. Um, and again, I'm not going to say that this is the best or that something else is the best or whatever. It's the greatest, best possible thing you could ever imagine. The thing is that with these, when I try to design these, I try to make them, how do you say, I tried to make it kind of maintain a smaller form factor or pretty much as tight and compact as I can really design it. And that way you can do things like, build walls and a roof around it and things like that, if you wanted to. So there are other ways that you could make this. If you wanted to expand this, then you could do something differently. It's pretty much just up to your imagination what you would like to do with it. Um, in fact, if you wanted to just completely redesign this and build the entire, sorter system up on the top, which I have done before in my creative world just to play with it, then you can get rid of the item elevator altogether. So if you wanted to have something that's kind of bigger and chunkier, then feel free to go for it. Um, but I just thought that this kind of made it easier to use, having the input and everything here. And, a lot of the circuitry could be avoided in certain scenarios. Like if you wanted to expand this by a few blocks, then you could actually put down a detector rail switch here to do the resetting, which I've also done in my creative world. Um, so then all you would need is something that, launched the minecart, right? And then you could have the minecart go over a track to, do the resetting for the droppers and all that. But, this covers all that anyway. Um, so I'll go ahead and start with a tutorial. So I will leave an items list in the description, which is going to include the items for an 8 output chest model. So to have 8 outputs plus the, what do you call it, the overflow. So that's what I am going to go ahead and show you right now. Okay, so to start, you are going to want to lay down, I just say 2 blocks, right? So you're going to need 2 building blocks, or you can make this on the ground, it's up to you. And then you're going to want 8 blocks. That's 4, right? So that's 8. And you're going to need another 3 blocks here. And then we're just going to put a curve on it. So this is going to be the track, right? Okay, so you can start laying down some minecart track here. So you need 2, or actually 3 normal rails. And then, see, I just run some power rails here. You can, substitute. You can just use, if you don't have all the gold, whatever, you can just use like 1 rail or whatever if you wanted to. But just for ease of the tutorial, just go ahead and use some powered rail. Alright, so mute that. So you're just going to want to run some rail around. Okay. So next, that is the general, shape of what you're going to want. Alright, so skip 2 blocks here in the front, put down a dropper. In fact, you can go ahead and put down 4 droppers. Okay, all pointing up, and that is going to be your dropper elevator. So go ahead and put 2 hoppers pointing into the bottom dropper, a 3rd hopper pointing into that one, and then a 4th hopper pointing into that one. Yeah, so overall I think this is going to use like 30 hoppers or over 30 hoppers, so it's a pretty resource expensive machine. But anyway, all right, so before we get into the filter, I'm just going to go ahead and put in the item elevator. So you're just going to want to make some room here. And the first thing that we're going to put down is going to be a repeater, which is going to be going into the block below the dropper. Okay, so behind that repeater, put in a block, and then a block on the side. And you're going to want to run some redstone like that. Alright, so behind the repeater, you're going to want to have a redstone behind that block. Another block next to that redstone dust. A torch coming off of that block. Block behind the redstone. Block on top of the torch. And we can go ahead and put down a dust here, and then just put a block on top of that dust to cut all that off, right? Okay, so above the repeater, put down a block, and then we are going to need a comparator there, so you can see how the dust runs into that. And this doesn't have to be in subtract mode, it doesn't matter. And then on top of this block in front of the comparator, put down a redstone torch. Right, so you can just go ahead and put up some blocks next to the droppers, and we are going to be putting observers in. So facing that direction, put in 3 observers, and then looking down on that torch, put in a 4th observer pointing down with a torch on the top of that. Okay, so that is the dropper elevator done. You can go ahead and test that out. And there you go. So that should be hopper speed. Yeah. So the thing is that with this repeater, just to let you know, I'm going to take a little rabbit hole here, however they say that. So this is going to be hopper speed if that repeater is set to 1 tick, right? Now, sometimes because Bedrock is buggy, sometimes that comparator down here will send like a double tick signal, which will cause this repeater to fire a second time when it's not supposed to. And what that means is that sometimes after the items go through, you're going to hear noise, you know. So if you have that problem, what you can do is put the repeater down to 2 ticks. The issue is that that's going to slow it down a little bit. So in fact, I think in this model over here, the comparator was a little buggy, and so I put the repeater down to 2 ticks. So if you don't care about the noise, then just leave it at 1 tick. If you want it to be quiet, you can put it at 2 ticks, but that'll slow down the item transfer rate. Okay? Alright, so we can get on with making the item filter. So here you're going to want to use either glass or a half slab, so you can put down a glass block there. You're going to want 2 blocks on top and put a glass block there, right? So that middle block is going to be a temporary block, but we're going to need to put in 2 more hoppers facing those blocks, and then you can just remove that one. Alright, so down here on the bottom, I'll just do this to show you, but coming back to the back here, you're going to want to put down some redstone with a repeater pointing towards the hoppers. Okay. So next, just come off with some blocks all the way to the track, and 1 more block on top of the track. So here we're going to be putting down a comparator with a block in front of it. And then on the side here, just put in 3 more blocks. And here we're going to be putting dust with a repeater next to the block, and then 3 more dust there. And above this dust down here, hanging off of that block, you can put in a redstone torch. Alright, so coming off the block above the track, put in a torch. And you want a block on top of that and a block on the side. Okay. So next bring this line of blocks forward until you get on top of the comparator there, because we're going to be running redstone dust just like that. Okay. So next on the second block here, you can go ahead and put down a torch with a block. Okay. So that is the item filter pretty much done. We still have to do a lot of the other circuitry and things like that. But I'm going to go ahead and take this chance to put in our furnaces. So you're going to want to use either furnaces or droppers or barrels, pretty much anything with an inventory right here to go on top of the hoppers. Don't forget that, because I've explained it a few videos ago, but the minecart is going to be traveling down this rail, and if you put a normal block here, then as it goes down the corner here, this hopper can actually pull an item from the minecart. It's not supposed to, but it does. So if you put furnaces there, then that will prevent that from happening. Alright, so we're just going to go ahead and do a little something here, which is going to be the minecart launcher. So you're just going to want to put down a rail or a block behind that rail, and take your blocks, make a line of blocks. Something's a little off here. Let me see. Yeah, something's. Oh, you know what I did? Yeah, that's what I did. Okay. Yeah, so pay attention. That's the best part. Alright, so you need a block behind that rail, and then we're just going to be putting a line of blocks lower. So coming back to above this block, right? So put a block there, and then next to that block from the comparator, put a block there. Okay? And we can just put down some redstone dust on top. And what we're going to be doing here is coming up a block like that. So you want to block above the redstone, because we're going to be putting a repeater here. Okay, and you can put that at 4 ticks. And then coming off the top of the repeater, or like the back top of the repeater, so you go ahead and put down a block with the dust there. Alright, so I think that is about enough for the filter. So coming off 3 blocks from the powered rail section here, so starting 1 block after your dropper elevator, you can put down your first index chest, right? So that's 1, 2, 3. Alright, so that is our 8 index chests to match up with our 8 outputs. And I will go ahead and just put in, I'll tell you what. So whenever you have enough index chests, depending on how many you want, you can just go ahead and put down a couple blocks there. And that's going to be the start of the rail that goes up the side. So we can go ahead and put some observers facing the index chest. And of course you can make these doubles later on. But just to get started, this is just to show you how to make it. Alright, so coming off of the observer here, you're going to want to put up some temporary blocks. And so that's going to be 4 blocks, right? So at the top, whatever's easier for you, our objective here is to just put in droppers pointing down, right? Oops. So however you decide to do that, it's up to you. But it does make it pretty easy whenever you have blocks on the top. Alright, so next, blocks behind all of the observers. And we're going to want droppers pointing up. So you're going to want to make sure that they are pointing up. If you don't know what that looks like, it looks like that. So top droppers pointing down, bottom droppers pointing up. Alright, so next to this torch here, put a block, and we're going to make a line of blocks like that. So diagonally down next to the observer, put another line of blocks. So our goal here is to put in comparators that can actually read the dropper behind them. Okay. And then coming off the front of the comparator, you're going to want a line of blocks, and you're going to want that to, be one longer than your last comparator. Alright, so we can put in some temporary blocks here and temporary blocks in the front. And altogether we're going to need 9 hoppers here because I have 8 outputs. So the last one is always going to be your overflow. So you want to point these forward. Alright, and that is going to be the beginning of our output chests. So I'll just put in a few here. Alright, so next we can go ahead and put down some hoppers on top of our index, and then we can start to finish up the rail. Okay, so there's our hoppers, and I'll go ahead and put in our comparators. So you're going to want a comparator pointing into each hopper. Alright, so to do the rail system, come off of that hopper and then have a second block, right? So you're going to need 2 blocks, and put a transparent block here. You can either use glass or a half slab, I believe. Alright, so we're going to come up and form a little shape like that, and then just come back to this block here, and you can finish it off like that. Alright, so we can start to run our rails up, and not right there, because that needs to turn. Alright, so rails on top of all the hoppers. Ooh, and you know what I did need to do here was put in our input. So on the top of the filter, go ahead and put down a chest there. And coming off the side of your first filter hopper, you're going to want another hopper going into that with a double chest on top, and then a hopper pointing into that double chest. Okay. So for the rail, we're going to want to go all the way up to that hopper. So you can just put down some blocks and put some rails down, and we're going to need 1 more block here with your last rail. And then you're going to need a block to come out in the front like that, and our goal is that the minecart is going to, drive forward, hit that block, and then fall down. Okay, so you're always going to need a block here to stop the minecart. And while I'm here, I may as well put the hopper line down. So the last hopper is always going to be your overflow. So you can just finish it off by pointing a hopper down, and then point the rest of your hopper line going in that direction. Okay. Alright, So the railing is finished, and we can go ahead and remove all these temporary. Alright, next on top of all of these comparators, you're going to want to put down some blocks. Okay, and on top of all of these comparators, you're going to want to put down some blocks. Alright, so to start the little time delay circuit, coming off of your first output chest, where this hopper is, you're going to want to put down a comparator, and then skip a block and put down a comparator. So your last hopper, like if you put in an odd number, you may not be able to put another hopper down because you may have another comparator because you may have one here, and that's fine. But because we have an odd number here, excuse me. So because we have an odd number, the comparators just work out. So, alright, so we want dust on the blocks in front of all of the comparators, and a line of repeaters going down like that. Okay. And so just take some blocks to come to the front like that, or to come over the rail, and we're going to need another repeater there. So, excuse me. Alright, so what we're going to need to do, you know what I just noticed? This is one thing to pay attention to here, is that whenever you come with the rail right here, because we have redstone running down there, you're going to have to not put a solid block here. So you can use either glass again or a half slab, but if we use a solid block, it's going to cut off that dust. In fact, I don't know which version of this Mushi was talking about, but someone in the comments, I am Mushi, said that at one point he couldn't launch the minecart, and I wonder if that's why. But anyway, so make sure you have glass there. Alright, so put down a few blocks up here like this, because we're going to be running 2 dust like that into the back of a comparator. Okay, and on top of that comparator, put a block, and you can put dust on top of that. Alright, so it's coming along. It's a pretty long build. There's a lot to it. Alright, so we need to detect the input, and the way that we do that is by putting down a block next to that hopper with a comparator coming off the chest. So you can put a block in front of the comparator there with a torch, and a block on top with a torch coming off of that block. Okay. So again, we're going to need to use glass here, glass or a top half slab, but I just use glass. So put it on top of that dust behind the chest there, and come off of that torch with a block, and we need another block in the front of that glass like that, because we're going to be putting a repeater there with a piece of dust. Okay. So next we can go ahead and put in our little dropper latch here. So coming off of that torch, you want a dropper facing this direction, and in front of the dropper you want a dropper facing the opposite direction. So the point is that an item is going to get shot between these two, right? Okay. So where this block is, go ahead and put down another block, because we need a comparator to be able to read that dropper, right? So coming off the front of the comparator, put down a block on top of the comparator, and we're going to need another block there, and then you can put a piece of dust there. Okay. So we're going to want to put down a couple more blocks here. And let's see, we're going to need some there. So just make like a little platform here, because coming off of the block here, we're going to want a comparator. And here we are going to need a repeater and dust going into the comparator. So the repeater timings on this, most of these are just 1 tick. With the Minecart launching repeater, which is this one here, just make that 4 ticks to give it enough time to launch the Minecart. And this one you can make, 2 or 3 ticks, whatever. And because the point of that is that we need to send a signal and then cut off the signal, right? Okay. So finally, we're getting close. So finally, we're going to need a repeater that comes off the front of this comparator, and then just a dust in front of that. Okay. Next, to make the Minecart relaunching system thingy, not the Minecart relaunching system thingy, the reset switch, right, for the droppers. Okay, so coming off of that comparator, you've got a block, repeater. You can put down a block in front of the repeater, and then just run dust all along the droppers there. Right. So generally that is pretty much it completed. So next we're going to go around and power the track. So you can put a block there with a torch. So I just put in a block with a torch there, and you can put down a block with a torch there. And if you don't have enough power here, you can just put a torch there. All right. That should be it, I believe. It's a pretty big build. It's pretty complicated. So what I'm going to do now is get some filter material. So get an anvil, and we're going to want to rename some items. And I just rename them filter. Alright, so for the item filter, we're going to need 19111. Alright, so we got 19111. To start off with, put one of the filter material here in this dropper. And then in every dropper here, we're going to need to put in an item. And like I said before, these droppers can be replaced with hoppers if you feel like using the iron for it. And that'll make it quieter whenever it resets. You won't hear all the noise. But either way, droppers work just fine. Oh, wait. No. Yeah. No. So if you wanted to use hoppers here, you're actually going to have to do something a bit different, right? So, in fact, I don't think I covered that before. But what you could do is just put a block there, and then power that, right? So the point would be that if you had hoppers here, that they are only going to unlock and push the items back down whenever this resets. Because we're using droppers, you can do it this way. It should work. It should work. I haven't tested it. But, so this would be something to test. So I think what I might do is just go ahead and put a few here, and then we can see if they reset or not. All right, so I'll test this out. But either way, you know, if you do it like this with droppers, if you're using only droppers, then you can do it like this. If you want to use hoppers, and we're going to test this out and see if it works. Now I need to replace all these. All right. But yeah, see, this is kind of how it is when you're designing something. You're just like, well, let me try this out and see what it does. Okay, so finally, if you wanted to be able to put in lights in the front, like if you were building a building around this and you wanted to have just some lights to see what it was doing, just put down 2 blocks there with some dust, and then come above this rail here with a block, and then you can put down a repeater there, and we can just put our lights in like that, redstone lamps. Okay, so let's go ahead and put in our minecart, and you're going to need 4 filter items or filler items in there. Okay, so leave one slot open, put items in the other. And now we can go ahead and, let's see. So we're going to put a redstone in the first chest, and I may as well just put a cobble in the second chest. Alright, so now, let's see, should be good to go, so let's put in a redstone. So reset, launch the minecart. And there's our redstone. So let's do a redstone and then a couple cobble. So we got our second redstone. Then we launch the minecart to find the cobble. Alright, so that works. So let's go ahead and test this with the hoppers here. Okay, so I'll just put one there, and we can see what happens. Alright, so let's put a different item there. Just grab some planks. So that should have fired. And then, let's see. So let's put in some planks. And then some cobble. Alright, so it found the plank. Sorted the plank. And it reset. Alright, so let's double check. Okay. Yeah, so that works. If you do put a torch there, then that should reset properly if you're using hoppers. Either way, another thing I wanted to explain, which I mentioned it before, but may as well. So if you run out of redstone power here, if you run out of signal, what you can do is, so put down a repeater there, And then next to and beside the repeater there, we're going to put down some dust. Okay, and that's how you can lengthen the signal out to reset these, because as I mentioned before, that this is, infinitely expandable, because you can just keep adding more outputs, as many as you want. And, it doesn't really affect it, because you just have a minecart going around, right? And then you just have a giant line of hoppers. So you can have as many different chests as you want. If you're new to how the system works, for each chest, you can just put in, one of any item. And that is anything that is a normal item that stacks to 64, or let's see, here's some signs, or items that stack to 16. You cannot sort anything that is non-stackable, and I'll show you what that does, but let's see. So if you put a non-stackable item like a water bucket or a lava bucket or a sword or a tool or anything like that, all it's going to do is, because it can't find it in the index, all it's going to do is take that item and bring that all the way back to the overflow. Okay. Alright, so we'll give this a second, and I'll just go ahead and build up around the bottom and make like a little base, just play around. So we can put that there, and that, and that, and that, and that. Oh yeah, and I normally put stairs here so you can actually see the input chest. Let's see. Ah. Alright, and the way that these hoppers are made, if you wanted to expand this, you can do like I did here, and you can put a whole stack of hoppers. And if you're new to item sorters, it's going to be a bit advanced. And this entire build is going to be a bit advanced, but what happens is that if we just put down chests and hoppers here, then any new items that come into the system are just going to go straight into the lower chest there, right? And I think it's already done with all this stuff I put in, so yeah, so we got our comparators, repeaters, torches, got more cobble, and should have gotten our signs there. And of course, we had the sword there. So you can fit, again, if you're new to this, you can fit as many different items in each output. Oh, look, I put that one right in the way. No. Yeah, so we'll have to figure out a place to put this torch, though. Oh, I'll tell you what, I'll just use a piece of glass here. I love glass. Alright. So, if you're new to this type of item sorter, the output chest in the front, you can see that I had redstone, torches, repeaters, comparators. So I can fill up this entire chest with index items. So whatever item I want to put in here, I can put it in here, and this is going to act as an index for the output chest. So now every time I put in a powered rail, if I put in a powered rail, then the item sorter is going to detect that item in the chest, and the item the input item is going to go into that output chest. See? So we got our powered rail here. You could put, 54 different items into one index, and all of those items, whenever you put them into the item sorter, will come out into this chest, or rather this line of chests. Okay. Alright, so I think that just about covers it. Again, like I said, this is probably the most complicated version. But if you stuck with it until the end, then thank you very much for watching. I hope if anybody has any issues with these, in their own worlds, then, this might help shine some light on it, or at least give you a way to, come back and use something as a reference. So anyway, that was it. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.